Sorry, this particular session is actually interactive. So if you have notepads, iPads, laptops, stone tablets, clay pieces, whatever you need to write things down, this is your opportunity to get it out. And we will get underway. So, hi. Welcome to the Change Management for Recruitment and Retention with a focus kind of in the equity, diversity, inclusivity, and accessibility space, or EDIA, as I like to call it. For those of you who do not know me, hello, my name is Cristin Merritt. My job is CMO at a company called Alces Flight. We specialize in integration and subscription services around supercomputers. I am also part of the Women in HPC Executive Board. We've got some goals, y'all, because this is all about goal setting. Sorry, that's my Southern coming out. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this thing called Move the Needle, which is a project that we ran officially in 2024, and outcomes are 2025. By the way, congratulations, you're guinea pigs for the outcomes, which we are still drafting. So some of this stuff might be a little like needing of some corrections, but the idea is that if we were going to do a project called Move the Needle, we should continue to move that needle forward, shouldn't we, by putting together some outcomes. I'm going to have you guys do a personal exercise on some goal writing. 1 to 3 goals. If we get through 1, that's great. You can do this around recruitment and retention. In fact, most of the documentation that you're going to see is primarily around that. However, because this has been going on for a while, you guys might have thought of something that you would really like to achieve or get out of, I've done this UK DRI retreat. I am really wanting to pursue this, and that way you can work on that goal instead. And the last bit is to talk about 2 things that often get overlooked after you set a goal, which is around accountability and seeking or securing investment. Okay, so here's your agenda. So I'm going to try to go through the overview as fast as humanly possible so we can get into the meat of it, and then we'll get into the overlooked section before I release you to lunch. And I think all of my times are wrong. Before I get underway, I need to give a massive thank you to Women in HPC and Alces Flight, who, when I came up with this idea for our project and I proposed it to the exec board for Women in HPC, they went, absolutely, yes, this is exactly what we're after. And not only that Alces Flight actually gave me time and money to do it. Right, so you keep saying move the needle, Cristin. What in God's green earth is move the needle? Well, unless you've been living under a rock, and again, I support those and their subterranean lifestyles. Anything you ever look for in terms of training, hiring, and retention in the field of technology or in the field of supercomputing in terms of research is about how bad things are. It is bad. We don't have enough skills. What skills you need? I don't know, whatever they are. We don't have enough of them. We don't have enough of the people. What kind of people? All of them. We want all the people to be in the tech. Yes? Right? So if you go and you listen as I'm in the high performance computing or HPC community to anything that an analyst puts out and they say, we've surveyed the community and the community says it's terrible, then you ask that follow-up question. So, what you gonna do about it? And to which they respond, And when I was sitting and we were planning this conference, which some people consider their favorite, known as Computing Insight UK or CI UK up in Manchester, we have a breakfast for women in HPC. My colleague, who I think was here 2 days ago, Will Mayers, says, Cristin, please, for the love of God, I love women in HPC, I love the breakfast. Please don't make it a complaining session. Please, I don't want people to get up and start whinging away around there's not enough women, there's not enough diversity, there's not enough this. Can we do something where people actually get up and start talking about what it is people are actually doing to drive this community forward? And so out of that, the Move the Needle project was born. So how did it work? It was 12 months long. It ended in December at the last CI UK, officially. We're in output now. There were 9 people that were part of the accountability team, and I'll talk about that in a bit, who were involved, and 2 project leaders, myself and my colleague Dominic Wojtek, who is currently suffering on a cruise with his mother. Each one of the 9 team members set a maximum of 3 goals per person. This could be individual or departmental-led goals. So some of these people, it was very much about them, and some of them is very much about the team. And each quarter we did a survey, and as we talked about with neurodivergency and accessibility issues, I quickly found out that surveys aren't always the thing with people. I also met with people, and some people sent me written reports, and some people showed up at the optional meetup we had each quarter, where they told us what they were up to and how things were getting along. So wouldn't it be very diverse or inclusive of me if I told them, I'm sorry, no, go fill out the survey. The A team, as I called them, they were the ones who were tracking progress. They were ones reporting to myself and to each other, primarily based in the UK. There was this knowledge portal, and I'll talk to you a little bit about how goals can get a little bit on the out-of-hand side that blew up out of our work. And these are people, these are some of the people, we actually had quite a few more, who contributed their knowledge on all sorts of aspects around EDIA and supercomputing, including things like mentorship, engaging with students. I've got 2 coaches up there, and that woman in the corner, Nagas, she is one of the people who runs the ISC conference, and so she talked about what you do to make large-scale events more accessible. Because of the fact that we were out in the community, we got invited to events. Look at me, I got invited to another event where we got to talk to the broader range community about what people were doing. So it was kind of like a sort of offshoot of being able to talk to a bunch of folks about what they were getting up to and grab their opinions. And this I'm very proud of. I know he's not here. One of the A team members, Tobias, I normally will write grant support letters, maybe 1 or 2 a year. I wrote 6 based out of this project, which I thought was nuts. Tobias got a grant. I got to write a letter for that. And a UCL grant called Discourse was recently accepted. So 2 out of 6, yo. I feel really good about that. And not up here, and if he was here, I'd make a massive fuss. We actually ended up with one of the A team members getting an award for his work. His name is Dr. Tom Meltzer, and he's at the University of Cambridge. So out of 9 people, 2 people had something happen, and we haven't actually published the finished report yet. So here's what goals in action can get you guys. Okay, so very quick, why in God's green earth would a commercial company sponsor a project like this? So a lot of people have asked me this question because this kind of veers into this whole like industry versus community thing. And the fact of the matter is Alces is rather lucky because we're not a reseller, we're more of a broker. We're more of a people that put together the solutions that solve the problems of our clients. We're not aligned to a particular vendor of any kind. And so because of that, we have the benefit of being able to be a cross community. So there are people in here who know me from small projects to people who have worked with me for years. And so because of that, they had no problem with giving time and money over to this because they knew how many people that this would benefit. So that's me just saying a big thank you to my employer for letting this happen. Right, before we get to goals, let's get to some delusions. I love these events. I love conferences. Unlike some people who have set aside their love for the supercomputing conference, of which I am the communications chair for 2025, Alan. But I'm joking. I absolutely love when people come together and like exchange ideas and make really cool things happen. The downside of these types of things is sometimes then after that you have to step out into this thing called the real world where the real problems happen. And so what I often say is you kind of come to these events and there's this sort of goal buildup like a staircase and you meet people and it just gets so exciting and you go up, 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 up to the top. And either you end up like looking down a sheer drop off or you end up hitting another wall as soon as you walk out the door. And I wanted to kind of create a bit of like an analogy, especially because my work is like recruitment and retention. This is where my focus is. About how ridiculous sometimes people can see goals from the outside. And the first thing I thought of, because I work in high performance computing, is exascale. And I thought, if we use this whole staircase model, and we have an idea, and everyone sits around the table, and you got your idea, so you put it on a workstation, and you iterate on a cluster, and then you're on exascale, and it's like 6 months, right? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. This is a complicated system. And I laugh about this, and I wanted to put this up because I hope maybe some of you guys can use this when someone says, well, then why is it we can't hire the right people? Well, if you use the exascale idea, you stick it against hiring and retention, it both looks absolutely ludicrous. In fact, I chose these pictures because they're ludicrous. If I blew up that picture, that man has so many houseplants. It's like, I could not believe how many houseplants you could put in a photo. But it's like you're writing up this job spec, you post it to a board, you get this amazing diverse pool. Oh my God, you hire the right person, you create a perfect career path, and the cycle is virtuous. It continues forever. And we all know that's wrong, but guess what? Cristin fell straight into that delusion gap when she did the Move the Needle project. Let me show you how. So, this is my staircase. This is what I wrote when I was going to do Move the Needle. I was going to recruit an A-team, and in my notes I had 50 people. I could handle 50 people. You notice I got 9, but we'll get to that. And then we'll recruit them, and we'll do surveys, and I'll have an online thing, and we'll just kind of do like a half a report, which we did. And then I'll do some more surveys and more online things, and then we'll go to CIUK, and we'll have our finale, and everything will be great, and we'll have a final report. And what I didn't, real life, right? Real life got in the way. And linear is nice, but it doesn't always happen. So when we start doing our goals exercise today, always keep that in the back of your head. That was my idea. This is my nice way of writing what actually happened. So when I decided to go out and do this, Women in HPC holds partnerships with HPC Wire and Inside HPC in terms of getting information out, right? The moment I did that, I started getting contacted by people running projects within the community that could benefit this project as a whole. That's why the Knowledge Portal happened. When the Knowledge Portal happened, I started getting contacted to do event presentations because people thought this would be beneficial for us to talk about all the things we were learning along the way. And then after that, I started being asked if I would write letters of support for grants. And then even support for Tom getting his award. So all these crazy things still happen, but I gave it a structure, and I kept it within that accountability of the A-team that I would report on what I did, both with those people and with the reports, of which you guys are going to see one of the outputs today. So big dreams, guys, especially around recruitment and retention, especially about improving this community, which I think already has a very solid core, is always small steps and consistency and accountability. So with that out of the way, let's set some goals. Right. Everybody get their paper, their pens, their phones, their dictation notes, whatever you need. And we're going to start writing down 1 to 3 goals that you would like to accomplish, either around recruitment and retention, or maybe it's a goal you'd like to set based on what you saw here at the UK DRI. And while everyone looks at me puzzled and goes, I don't know where to start, guess what? So if you scan or you go to the tiny URL, and I tested the tiny URL yesterday, I really hope it still works. There is a facilitation document, which I hope does not scare you all. It is a very big document, and that is because when this is all said and done, when you guys walk away, you don't need me to use this to help set goals within your team or within yourselves. This is documentation that is entirely based off of the goals that I gave up as examples that people could possibly do for Move the Needle. So at this point in the game, I'm going to go silent. I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes. If anybody has any questions that they'd like to raise with me, put your hand up and I'll happily help. But I want you guys to have some time to think about what you'd like to do. And because it's such a short period of time, I'm okay with 1 goal. But some of you guys might be blessed with the insight of an oracle and have all sorts of things you'd like to achieve. Go. Okay. Right. Everybody good? Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Cool. Nobody's looking at me going, fabulous. Okay. Your goals are your own, and I'm happy for people to share And we'll start doing that in a second, but I want to go through some refinement practices that we went through that came as part of the output from Move the Needle. By the way, that facilitation doc, if you keep scrolling past the goal examples, a lot of what I'm about to say is in there. So if you guys are like, I'm done with PowerPoint, and you just want to actually look at the documentation, you can do that too. So the success of your goals we've learned from the group are based on properly 4 factors. First being your motivation. So look at the goal or goals you have in front of you right now. Are these goals that you actually want to do? Because I know sometimes you get forced into goals based off your particular position or what it is you're trying to achieve within your department or your industry. And if you do not have an actual drive underneath that you, like a little fire that you have lit underneath you to get something done, you're less likely to do it. And we saw this within the A team in regards to the fact that, like, sometimes when people start waffling about the goals that they wanted to set, we said, well, is this because you want to, or is like there's some other actual motivation behind this? And that helped refine them down to what it is they wanted to achieve. One of the people wanted to be a mentor. She really wanted to, but she kept waffling back. And what we found out is what she needed was a very simple way to mentor to start. So she just started with poster mentorship, for instance. So she just did that. It was a very short 2-week time. And she got to work with someone on their poster submission. And that's the kind of thing that you can get that refinement down. And that boosted her. And then she started doing more, right? Clear goals. If you can measure it, awesome. That's great. Having some type of, like what they call the SMART goal system is a really good thing. If you are looking at your stuff and it is nebulous, because especially when it comes to recruiting and retention and training, it can be very nebulous. We need to train better. Okay, I want to train better this year. Okay, well, that's not very clear. You know, let's go into what it is you think you can do to train better. And like in the notes that I wrote down, removing jargon. Big problem in HPC. We love our jargon. And because of that, it's like, you know, having to step it back. When I explain HPC to people, I say I relate it closer to something they can see or touch, such as Mars landings and Met Office, because that's something that people can see, rather than talking to them about some of the stuff that happens within drug discovery. And that's the kind of stuff, or physics, black matter, that sort of stuff. We're going to get into this with accountability and investment, but leadership. Does your goal require a sponsor? Does it require a leader? Does it require any kind of sign-up? Does it require working with someone else? Make sure you're clear on that. And also, who do you need to achieve that goal? So to talk about women in HPC, I often will say this, some people have heard this a bit from me and they're probably a little over it, that one of the biggest drawbacks of women in HPC is the word women in it. And that's because when it first started out, it was a women's only group. And they realized it became a bashing situation. They would go in and complain and no one would get anything done. And so they set the first goal of getting rid of booth babes. Those who are probably 40 or older will recall times, I did, of attending technical conferences where you could have women standing next to you in bikinis with shots in hand. Oh yeah, I love the big eyes. It was real. And yeah, try to go in as a female executive and try to stand next to that and talk seriously. Doesn't work so good. So they did that, and then, you know, they started setting more inclusive goals. They started having ally speakers because it's really important to have other community members represented. If your goal is to set up a community or group, make sure you're thinking, like, who do I need there in the room? Because there's lots of groups and things like that out there. So there's that. And then, because I just said, HPC, we hate jargon. Here's some jargon. Acronyms, we love acronyms. There's also some other little things you can think about too, and that's about like the size of your organization. Usually that means the speed of travel and the culture. So one of the A-team groups was an actual commercial institution who was looking at, we're 40 years old, how do we make it to another 40 years? They actually did a cultural interrogation, found out that their hiring specs were geared towards older white men, male, pale, stale, right? Older technologies, and they went, ooh, we could literally die out, quite literally die out. And I salute them, first of all, for actually taking that on. And they actually changed up a whole bunch of their wording around that after doing a cultural interrogation of how they actually approach the outside community for those looking for jobs. So, share time. Does anyone want to talk about their particular goals? I love this. I love this. Does anyone have questions around goal setting and saying, listen, my stuff's way too broad?
I'm happy to talk about some of the goals that I have interest in, which is, I think a lot of work has been done recently on kind of broadening interviews, and a lot of focus has been on making sure that everyone has an equal opportunity at interview and all that kind of things. But what I found in some ways is sometimes it has made a more strict interview process, and when we're looking at equality, we're not necessarily looking at equity. And I'd like to focus more on equity in the interview process than pure equality. It's great that we can give everyone exactly the same questions, but if we have a follow-on question that we have to give everyone, even if they couldn't answer the first question, maybe we're wasting time within the interview that could have been spent finding other skills that these people have.
So it sounds like you've accidentally or potentially narrowed in on where you could potentially focus your goal, which is on the interview questions themselves. I agree with you on that. My husband is in industry world. He decided to go on a lark to see if he had a job that he was interested in. It was 8 rounds of interviewing, and they rejected him. 8 rounds. Because they were so obsessed, that particular company, with trying to make sure that he met it seems like he had to meet everybody. Everybody had to be meet him. Those kind of things and interview structures and setups, they have pros and cons. The other thing too is, as I always tell people, interviews are not the real life. You are not going to be sitting in a panel answering questions every day, or my favorite thing, writing code on a whiteboard. Because, that's how we do all of our products at Alces. No. So it's those kind of things that you have to look at. So I think, so interview questions. Anybody got anything around this? Because, as glorious as I like to be, 2 fingers, people can talk about it. So interview questions.
Yeah, so our institution is quite big on EDI. It's a big push. And we have a sort of values-based recruitment process. And it's very compliant, it looks very good, but what we found at shortlisting is candidates who don't understand a values-based recruitment process don't score well.
Mm-hmm. So you've got some education to do.
So we kind of need to educate applicants, what do they need to do to actually get through the shortlisting? Because at post-shortlisting and interview, we don't have as diverse a group as we did at application stage. And then when we get to it, once we've chosen and recruited, that's even less diverse. And you'd hope that law of large numbers, eventually it would work out if your process was right, but that understanding of how to apply.
So the other thing you might be considering is experimenting with different ways of interviewing people. And if you set it up like a little bit of a project and say, okay, we're going to do values-based, but we're going to try a few other methodologies around our interview practices. See if there's a mix-up, or like maybe there's something that's a bit more aligned that gets to where it is you want to go. If you have that power, by the way. I've just said the words like as if you're like going to swan in tomorrow and go, right, we're going to change all of this. No, if you have that kind of level or power, or you can propose it and say, right, so in marketing, we have what's known as A/B. So you can do this thing where you talk to a certain group of people in one way and you talk to another group of people in another. And what you may be needing to refine down to is maybe it's the questions. You could A/B list it, or you could do like the little, little flow charts, or you could look at recruiting practices in and of themselves. What's out there? How does it operate? There can be research behind that. That can be a goal before the goal, which is find out what's out there, propose the following, test the following interview questions. You got your little science experiment, right? Put it up on a little cardboard, presented at the fair. So those are the kind of things that you could potentially persist that's a little bit more specific around what it is you'd like to achieve. Does that help you in any way, shape, or form? Okay, good. I hope so. So a couple things for you to potentially pursue. And it is okay, by the way, to wind it back to start to why is this even here? One of Tom, who worked for Cambridge, they actually interrogated how the hiring criteria came to be. Because originally he wanted to improve it, but he realized he needed to find out where the criteria came from before he could even do that. So that's okay too. Anyone else want to share? Ooh, yay, I love this. I should have brought bribes like candy or something.
I can share, but I'm not sure everyone's going to love what I'm going to say. Okay, so I came up with the 3 things. The 3 things for me were it's about the career path and pay reviews and all of the things that go with certainly the type of job that I do, right, research data management. Then it's also to do with, and this is probably going to be quite a little bit topical, women in HPC, right? This would be about the work-life balance and burnout, where we tend to have to do more to show, to be visible, yeah? Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think probably ought to be recognised. Especially when we work in, here we go, the 3rd one, which is that people laugh, but I always say I want to smash the system. I want to smash the system. I want to change research culture so that it's not the little people that are expected to do everything and everyone else gets the glory. And I think those 3 things all kind of tie into each other. Mm-hmm. Is that if the system is broken, then there's always going to be an expectation on some people to do more with less, whether that's with resources or with their own time and expertise, and that they will inevitably end up burnt out, whether you're a computer chip or a person, right?
Yeah.
That's very nicely summed up.
Anyway, we solved everything. Job done. That's actually quite, I liked that analogy, the idea that, computer systems live forever, why shouldn't people? And that's, as we all know, that's all false. These systems have to be replaced. If you turn them off, they may not turn on back on again. And same thing works for people as well. I think you've got some really, really strong starting points. And I think what you need to do now is figure out the steps to get towards what it is you're after. So I love the smash the system, the things like, what is it? I'm thinking of the project name, and somebody will shout it out at some point. Hidden Ref, the Hidden Ref movement, about trying to find out what it was that was working on particular papers and bringing their names into light, the people grinding the code, the people out there grabbing the detail, changing the culture to be less about that one individual standing up at the top and more about the team effort, including other people, such as inviting a department head to nominate instead of them coming to speak. Who within the department would he like to see from this particular pool of candidates? And I think it's there is where do you have that power? Where can you make those differences and those changes? Because again, move the needle. This was brought, AJ Lauer, who's an American coach. She originally was with NCAR. She was the one running the inclusivity committee in 2021 for SC. For anybody who experienced that SC, it will never happen again. There was like 3,000 people, and this conference is usually like closer to 15, 20,000. It was just, every day something was new. And we would be in there like losing our minds, because I was in, the accessibility team, like trying to figure out who needed help. And she would stop us and go, okay, this is not all or nothing, guys. Move the needle, little steps forward. So I loved your stuff, and I think what you need to do out of that is say, what's one thing I can do in 3 months? What's one thing I can do in 6 months? What's one thing I can do in a year? Because I think, especially with pay review, especially with anything based in like looking to balance and redress the system, if you then take that up to a senior leader, you could potentially be interrogated. So you just need to know what you need to know. So then that's you thinking the leader. Who am I taking this to? Can I pitch that to that person? Or do I need to pitch it to 2 people over who will pitch it to them and then they'll buy it? Those are the little political moves and things that can be part of your package. Especially, I've heard in academia the requirement around what degree you need to have in order to get said job, and how hard it is to change that one. And I think that's a group effort. Anyone else want to share? Hey, more sharing.
Thanks. So my employer is pretty good at like inclusivity, but I think one of the issues that we have is after the hiring process, like the things that we have actually to support people that come from like more diverse backgrounds, and I think one of the issues is that we have policies centrally, but whether people on specific teams actually know about them. And so there is like work to be done for managers to basically do that learning and then support their employees. Because like, for example, like I'm neurodivergent and like I know that we have an accessibility passport at Lancaster, but I don't think that most of the managers that I have had know of it, and therefore I've only found that help because I was Googling, like, so yeah, kind of working on the kind of people that are actually in managerial positions being knowledgeable of the help that we have.
So there's a training and education one, and I realized as I was listening to the training and section that of the accountability team, we actually didn't have a trainer involved, which is a shame because I was like, oh man, that's a missed opportunity there to get some feedback on pursuing training initiatives. And a lot of that also comes with the whole carrot and stick methodology, especially around getting people new ideas or technology, or new ideas, or showing people what's around. Is that are you going to force these people into this training, or are you going to incentivize the people into the training? And sometimes you got to do one or both. It depends on who you're dealing with. The biggest thing is knowing those resources are out there. A lot of that is, I hate to say this, is all community management and terribly marketing. It's marketing. And I know a lot of people go, we don't marketers. We're a humble institution that works together to achieve common aims in research. And the thing is that, but if nobody knows what's going on, then how are you going to get more funding, more people, more interest, and those things too? And so like community management role, which is one I brought up, I think is almost like you could part and parcel that with anyone who does general marketing work. So if anybody's looking to hire community managers, broaden your search to marketing. Anyway, one more and then we'll start talking about this horrible thing called accountability. Unless nobody else wants to talk. Oh, silence. I'm going to just look at you, Alan. What you want to do next year?
There's like people from my department here.
Oh.
That if I tell them what I'm...
Just like...
I mean, some of these are like the problems that I face, right? But, and I did write down two. One is actually, the discussion here, or the lack of discussion, so to speak, around the... when we did the funding business casey thing here, got me really thinking about trying to set a goal around, ways to empower everybody that's kind of working on the coalface to see these opportunities around the DRI skills development and things like that, and how we get more of the community kind of getting, sort of pitching for those things because they feel that they're the right person to be doing it and that sort of thing. I guess, and finding ways to involve them in that, more was one of my kind of things which I had down here. I also had the really thorny thing around basically the sort of more senior technical kind of people without line management responsibility trying to kind of build the cases that, we all play lip service within our organisations that this all exists and it's all fantastic, and you come down to it and like your boss just says, yes, but your grading profile across your department is X.
Yeah.
Live with it. And just gradually chipping away at making sure that some of these things that we are playing lip service actually do start to happen. So there's things in there that I'm very unspecific about.
Yeah,
there's lots of people in my team that are going, oh wow, he's going to
get
some promotions.
I can see the stuff around that I see that you would need to kind of break that down a little bit more into various components on, like, how to build up confidence, how to figure out how to report on funding, how to be transparent, where to be transparent. All sorts of little things that could be done there. And I think if you could probably map that out pretty well and slowly chip towards something at the top. But I think the complexity of some of these goals, especially because I am looking around and I do see people that I know who are leading really big groups and departments and stuff like that. It's a blessing and a curse to be in a position of power, to being able to make change. It's a blessing and a curse. And I think that it can also stymie you, and I'm going to just say to you and all the leaders here, don't let that. If it's just a small thing, then a small thing will actually, I've seen it more than not one time happen. I've had too much coffee. I've seen it happen more often than not, that a small movement can slowly build out the momentum and things can start going better, so.
But if people are interested in this kind of that first thing around the community support and they want to be with me on that journey, then please do talk to me about it, about what we can do to kind of help there and facilitate, and I might even be able to delegate it before the end of the day.
Good delegation. Community support, I just want to remind you, especially as we get into this wonderful things called accountability, because you really, now that you guys have written stuff down and some people have talked, and maybe while they were talking, you went, oh, that's a good point, and started to kind of like refine your goal down a little bit. Remember that community is not thoughts and wishes alone. There needs to be time and money involved, but we'll get that to in a second. If you want to achieve your goals, don't walk out this door, don't walk out of this event and throw the goal in the bottom of a drawer or forget about that it ever happened. So one of the things about having the A-team was that by having the A-team, people got their goals done. This is like project management 101. Have a project team meeting. So where'd you get you this week? Where'd you get you this week? And everybody had, we set a timer for an hour, and everybody we tried to get through everybody's stuff as fast as possible. If someone had something really thorny, we would spend time there. But one of the things about having that accountability team was they were like, actually, I knew this was coming, so I had to get something done. So because this particular community is, much more open to those types of communications, if one of these things, you guys are sitting at your tables or you're sitting with your teams and you say, actually, after this, once a quarter, we're all going to sit down, after we've refined our goals, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about where we're running into trouble. And believe it or not, when you have that deadline looming over your head, you're more likely to get it done. So here's some things. A team of your own, timed check-ins, any type of thing where you have to do something, report something, reports. For those who love them some metrics and data, make sure you run your stuff, get your metrics down, look at your data, refine it. Oh my gosh, is my reporting off? Right now I'm trying to figure out how to track my own time, for instance. That is a headache in and of itself, but it's a goal that I've set myself. And I've realized that if I go and report that outward, it's very confusing. So I've been trying to look at it from two perspectives, my own personal one and the outside, but it's metrics driven, right? And the other thing is investment, because especially community-based stuff, anything community-based, and this could actually get into training to some extent too, because people think of it as, I loved this term, it was called side of desk, and that's called free labor, in my opinion. The whole idea behind this investment is actually saying, I will do this, I will give myself time, or even better, I will get resources. That means funding or a person with you. So this is why I said when you refine your goals, you need to think about who's involved. Because if you want to achieve a particular goal, you may need the sign off of your boss to make sure that that is part of your work. Actual work, not your free time, if it's very much related back towards your job, right? So for Move the Needle, for me, and actually this is why this year I'm time tracking myself, I got a little too into it. And I had gotten formal sign-off to do it, but we never really talked about how much time that I should spend doing things, right? How much work I spend out in the community. And so at the end of the project, and we sat there and talked about it, Will and I talked more, and he goes, okay, now you need to start thinking about your allocation of time. Where are you spending your efforts? Because he said, I see lopsidedness in what you're doing. And that was really kind of a wake-up call for me. And it could be a wake-up call for you as you start writing out your goals and going, oh my gosh, I spend this much time on my job and it seems like this much time doing stuff in the community. Maybe I need to talk with my boss a bit more because they're happy with me doing this stuff, but they keep defining my role as this. And it's actually this. And those are the kind of wonderful things that you might actually tease up out of your own self as you go on your journey. But the other thing is funding, money to do something. The thing about, again, let's point back to Women in HPC, that's an entirely volunteer-driven organization. None of the executive committee are paid. The EPCC, who looks after our funding, they do it when they have time. They send our stuff to shows on their pallets and they don't charge us. There's all this stuff that has to happen that's based off goodwill, and the moment, if that breaks at any point, then that's gone. And those are the kind of things that we as a community, the exec board looked at and went, oh gosh, we need to make sure that our legacy is built in place so that if, you know, we get so big that the EPCC is sending, you know, a jillion pallets of our shirts to an event, that we can pay for it. And those are the kind of things that we had to think about. Like, do we need a community manager that we pay to be the leader of this group? I know the RSC group added a director to their community because they realized, oh, we got to be serious about this now. It's kind of got big. And that's okay. So, I'm going to end this. We've got 15 minutes because I really want you guys to also have a chance to talk to each other or talk to me or just start asking questions. It's the basic thing, as I'm saying, is there's probably, I've only been here today, this morning, and I'll be there this afternoon. I bet you guys have had a bunch of notes and things you'd like to achieve. I hope that by the time you guys all get up and go out to lunch, that you are actually, like, you got some stuff down and you got a plan, like, even if it's a draft outline, then I would be so proud of you all. The final report for Move the Needle should come out in February because the A team who's doing written contributions and also editing my stuff, because if not, I'll do Americanisms, will be out in February. That gives an actual detail of what people did. Those who attended the CI UK breakfast will know that we had some really good stuff around mentorship, documenting best practices. My favorite was Tobias standing up and saying those who report on bugs and features within software are a particular type of personality, and he was trying to figure out how to get new voices in on reporting features, to actually launching a Women in HPC chapter that was built not by just women alone. So with that, if anyone has questions, I'm going to be up here. But because I know some of these goals and things are very much your own, you can either go away with that or you can talk to the people at your table. And I want to thank you all so much for your time.